hundreds of cities, millions of people. One man, now in the palm of your hand, on any device. For over 60 years, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has dedicated his life to spreading the message of freedom, justice, and equality to people all over the world. Log in to NFA Studios and get unlimited access to a vast library of his life's work, plus never released lectures, interviews, and exclusive content. With new releases every week, NFA Studios is your one-stop destination for spiritual and mental upliftment.
It's better than Zoom.
And now, introducing NFA original content, featuring shows such as Dinner with the Minister,
StreamYard,
How to Eat to Live cooking show, 40 Miles the series.
In this series, we're going to look at the history of the Nation of Islam,
Food Nation, and much more. The wait is over. Welcome to the evolution. Welcome to NFA Studio.
The importance of oral history in the history of any society, the history of any movement, nation, civilization, is that you talk to the people who walk through this part of history. It gives the people a sense of the history. And the sense of history is to look at that history. Its meaning to you as an individual, but how does that history impact on what you're doing right now?
In this series, we're going to look at the history of the Nation of Islam. This growing nation that has defied all odds, producing world leaders and icons. This history that's facts.
I saw something that I had never seen before.
Most of what I'm saying now, not too many people have heard that unless I told it to a person.
No one really knows our roots like we do.
40 Miles represents the mission. It represents the love one must have to embark on this mission. It represents courage, faith, belief, and the willingness to struggle against opposition to walk the uphill road.
This problem is to be solved by God, and the solution of the problem has been given to me.
What is the truth about the Nation of Islam in North America? We'll unveil it all here. Welcome to 40 Miles.
Welcome to Food Nation. We're going to be traveling cities across the country, tasting the best of foods nationwide.
The food is here!
She put flowers in the chicken, son.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get out of here, man.
Greetings. My name is Sister Hania, and welcome to How to Eat to Live. On this show, we will be gaining the fundamental knowledge of cooking with the Muslims, as taught to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Log on right now, www.finalcall.com. Get that book. We are going to incorporate the navy bean. We're going to do a navy bean smoothie, which is a protein smoothie made from fruit and also navy beans. We're going to do a navy bean hummus, kind of a snack, little appetizer dessert. And then we're going to do some navy bean soup, which is the staple in every Muslim household.
When we think of marriage, everyone has their own idea of what the ideal marriage looks like. A man and a woman and their children. You see the woman and she's so in love, and the man can't take his eyes off of her. So we know what it's supposed to look like on the outside, but there's a lot that goes into having the ideal relationship. Are we strong enough to go through the struggles to find love on the other side? Why even go into something knowing that you'll face difficulties? Since the beginning, there's always been a man and a woman. So I guess you can say that since it's always been here, that love is as natural as breathing. So it's a struggle, but it's an uphill struggle. The ability to love through the darkness, love in black.
Getting married, according to what we have learned from the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well as the scriptures of Bible and Holy Quran, marriage, Prophet Muhammad said, is one half of faith. So if faith is the spiritual journey that one goes from being what is called worthless water or sperm into a process of evolving to becoming a reflection of God. If marriage is half of faith, then marriage is half of that journey to become one with God, bearing witness to the Bible and that statement of Prophet Muhammad. The male and the female were created two twin halves of a single essence. Well, if man and woman was created in pairs, what would you call a person that only had one eye or one leg? They are called handicapped. So when a man is without a woman, he's handicapped. And when a woman is without a good man, she's handicapped. So getting married makes you a complete you.
Okay, so where we were?
How we met?
We met in middle school.
First time that I seen Aisha was at Savior's Day.
We met at the gym.
We first met when I was 15 years old and she was 13 years old.
Do you want to tell the how we met story? Because we both tell it differently.
I'll start.
Through NFA, our own platform, the people will be able to meet the minister, see the minister, experience the minister. The teaching is there and it will resist now because it's the truth. It can't be bent. This is the platform. So may Allah bless NFA. May Allah bless all those who would work on behalf of the vision and let the vision continue to expand.
Never fall again. Never fall again.
America was not built on a firm foundation. The nation called America was doomed from its inception. How do you build a nation? Killing the native people. How do you build a nation? Bringing a whole people out of Africa to America to be made slaves. This is your foundation. The world is looking at a country going to hell. You are opting to be a part of that is unraveling right in front of your eyes. You see the country cascading downward.
This is America.
Why do you want to get into something that is coming to an end? So we are living in the time of the unraveling of this great nation.
Welcome to the Foodie Spot. My name is Sister Carmela Muhammad, and we are a proud sponsor of Doing the Math with Dr. Wesley. I come to you in preparation for possible hard times. We've been told to store food in our home by the Honorable Mrs. Farrakhan, so you can also come to the Foodie Spot and get your navy bean soup, vegetable medley soup, and lentil bean soup, pressure cooked canned. In addition to that, I have dried navy beans. We also have frozen dinners prepared that you can actually store it in your freezer for those times. Pull them out, warm them up, cook them. We also have our natural antibiotic, which consists of fresh ginger root, turmeric root, garlic, and horseradish. We are also shipping our natural antibiotics in addition to our navy beans, red lentil, vegetable medley, and bean pies. For shipping, call 773-420-3948. Again, for shipping, call 773-420-3948. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Hey, powerful creators, and welcome back to Doing the Math. I'm your host. Sorry, my niece is here right now. If you can hear in the back, I apologize for that. She's 2 years old. She came to visit me. But nonetheless, thank you all. Okay. Sorry about that. I apologize. Thank you all for tuning in with us as we do our live broadcast right now. Back in March, Dr. Wesley and I hosted a conversation on how to kill a god on the murder of Michael Jackson. This is called the Vindication of Michael Jackson. It's a special report. And for the next 3 days, we're going to do a special series of the 3 episodes that we recently already recorded back in March. And so you all will be able to ask us questions live, and we are going to take the questions. I know we are very excited. We've got some people in here from Zambia, Africa, who are tuning in right now. It looks like we have also Professor Charles Brooks, which, if I'm correctly, is recently or has recently did a reversion of the Color Purple musical. So it's so awesome that we have just people internationally who are tuning in, and brilliant Black scholars and entertainers who are tuning in right now as well. So we are very excited about this all. Dr. Wesley?
Man, it's good to be back, and it's good to air this piece. We recorded it, as you said, back in March, right after Savior's Day, not long after Savior's Day, and not long after we completed the report. As most people may or may not know, our conversation was based on this 100-page report that I did on the murder of our dear brother, Michael Jackson. We titled the report, How to Kill a God, because the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan told us that Michael Jackson was well beyond the king of pop. He was a god, the archangel of sound, of song, and of dance, as the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan described him. So we had that conversation in March. We chose to debut it today on the 11th anniversary of the murder of our dear brother. And I just say as we go to the presentation, I would hope our family who loves Michael Jackson download the report. It's available as a free download on our page, drwesley.online. I believe that we have gone the furthest in uncovering the details of what happened to our brother 11 years ago. I have heard many opinions. I have read many writings. But I believe Allah has blessed us to uncover in great detail what happened to our brother, why, and who. So, dear family, avail yourself to the full in the details, and we hope you enjoy these next 3 days as we bring to you the great conversation we had vindicating Michael Jackson.
Yes. So again, I apologize. My twin sister and my niece, they came to visit me. And so, she's 2 years old. So she just sees that I have like this set up and wants to talk to me. And I'm like, can you take her in the other room? This is live right now. So I do sincerely apologize for that. Because of the coronavirus, there really is not many kids outside for her to play with. So trying to figure that out right now, so you're not going to have any other interruptions. But for the other 2 days, there will not be any toddlers at my house, so you guys don't have to worry about that.
We love the toddlers. You don't even need to apologize. We love the toddlers. We love the children.
Yeah. She said hi, though. She's like, I want to say hi. And I'm like, you don't even know who I'm talking to. But yeah, no, so I'm really excited just to share this with everybody because, ever since I've been introduced to the Nation of Islam, it's been and particularly your research, it's been so informative. And I've always felt like I'm taking a master levels course class. And so all of our audience out there, I feel like you're going to be in for some schooling today. I know I was. And I like Crime ID TV. So if you are like me, who's big on Crime ID TV and things like that, I'm telling you, once you start hanging out with Dr. Wesley, you're like, that show has nothing on Dr. Wesley because he goes so in depth. And even with the sources that, that you pulled, I think one of the things for me, which was exciting, but also mind blowing, was the fact that, a lot of your sources all of your sources are easily, you can find them. I mean, it's like the New York Times, the Washington Post. And so I'd go through this about Michael Jackson or just any of your research, and I'd cite or I would fact check your footnotes, and I'd be blown away that this existed. And I'm like, whoa, like the Washington Post legitimately made this article, and people are coming to Dr. Wesley about, where'd you get this? You're making it up? And it's like, no, like you could.
It's only people who don't study themselves to accuse me of making stuff up.
Well, I highly recommend people to download the document. If you download the document and you start going to the footnotes are amazing. They're beautiful because footnotes tell you where the original source is. You're going to be blown away too that all this information not only is out there, but it's been publicized by major media outlets, and still many of us are unaware of what's going on or haven't even pieced it together. So in this 3-part series, you're going to see how Dr. Wesley has really pieced all the available information and told a very cohesive story, and it leaves you with more questions than unfortunately answers. So just saying that to prepare you guys, because I don't know, y'all about to be schooled today. I know I was.
I just want to make the last point as we go in. I've said, I've coined the phrase, God is in the details. This culture says the devil is in the details, and he is, but only because he's following up behind God, who's in the details. And truth is in the nuance. And This is heavy, it's dense with detail.
Right.
Because it's detail that tells the story. We don't need general statements, and that's how you can fact check something. You fact check the details. If the details don't square up, then the fact is impeached. If the details are absent, then I can't do anything with the claim that lacks details. So we have put the details together. We have connected the dots. I believe that is what Allah has blessed me to do in my investigative journalist mode, if you will. That's what I do. Allah blessed me to connect dots, to put pieces together in a way that has not been put together before in regards to the subjects that I take on at any particular time. So God is in the details and truth resides in nuance. And so we have, I believe, provided a very robust, deep narrative that is dense with detail. That's the point.
Well, I'm excited. I know our live viewers are excited right now. And remember, we're about to get started. You are able to ask questions because after this, we're going to have a talk back. So be prepared. Let's get started.
Hey, powerful creators. Welcome to the season 4 premiere of Doing the Math with Dr. Wesley Muhammad. That's right, we're in season 4. I'm your host, Janita Harris, and of course, I'm with no other than Dr. Wesley Muhammad himself, who sits on the Executive Council in the Nation of Islam, and he's also on the Research Committee. Can you believe that we're in season 4?
God is good.
I know!
It's been a beautiful journey. I've grown. I've enjoyed watching your growth and the growth of the show. So, Allah is God.
Well, speaking of growth of the show, for all of our audience members at home, if you look around, you can see, hey, it's lit in here right now. It is a blessing and it is so amazing. I remember where at one point we had no one other than our live stream. And now we have food. There are doctors here. There are community leaders.
Shout out to Foodie Spot.
Right. We've got Foodie Spot. We have entrepreneurs in here. I mean, the Black community is just so wide and vast. It's humbling to be able to share this moment with everybody. So it's
a beautiful thing.
I know. I wore my dream earrings and my dream came true. So I'm super excited about that. So much is going on in the world. For instance, I know the World Health Organization was really hesitant to call the coronavirus a pandemic. However, after it's killed nearly 4,300 people and spread to 110 countries, they've left no choice but to do that. Celebrities such as Tom Hanks, as well as I believe Rita Wilson, have now contracted the coronavirus. And the NCAA has canceled March Madness along with the MHL and they have postponed their leagues. Disneyland's even closed down. So we definitely are in the midst of a pandemic. Now, something that I've known or that I've learned from working with you these last few years is that when there's a crisis, there's probably a God and a devil in the mix of it. And so I was hoping that you would kind of tease that out about that.
That's actually an excellent observation, Sister Janita. When Black people look at Donald Trump as president, as racist as he is, as foolish and as clumsy as he is,
as much as we don't like him, we should not look at Donald Trump. We should look at God. When we look or take note of the corona pandemic and look at the map, the first map I saw, the highest concentrations of the virus was in China and in Iran. That happened to be the two geopolitical enemies of the Trump administration. A highly placed advisor to Iran's supreme leader died by the disease. China, of course, says the virus did not originate among them, and it probably did not. China says, and probably rightly so, that it was man-made by the West. Our great brother, Dr. Abdul Ali Muhammad, gave some great insight into the origin of the coronavirus. There is little doubt that it is man-made in the same tradition of Ebola that was man-made and weaponized against African people. And HIV, which we documented, HIV was man-made, but the original HIV virus, melanated people were resistant to it. It was. So in order to weaponize HIV against African people, the scientists had to overcome the melanin resistance. So this is how you get HIV-2 and the other genotypes. I don't know if coronavirus, if African people are resistant to it. However, the map, the current map is very curious in that regard. Europe is being devastated by corona. In fact, almost every place on the planet is being devastated, but Africa, according to the map that they're presenting, Africa is almost untouched in the pockets that exist in Africa. The very few and small pockets, they seem to be non-African people. No foreigners in Africa. Communities
Is this because of the
foreigners.
melanin?
I'm not going to say that, though. I have read that, but I've also read, I have not been able to confirm that, as we could confirm it with HIV and the original melanin resistance to the original genotype of HIV. I can't confirm that with COVID-19, but it's very curious that Africa seems to be immune to the pandemic right now. So what's my take on the bigger picture that you presented, the God in double in this? I think the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, I've learned from him, God communicates in hints and in signs. And so the wise listen for God in hints and in signs. If we attribute the origin of COVID-19 and this corona pandemic, if we attribute it to wicked scientific dealings of the West, of the US, okay, China was hit. After China threw thousands of Muslims in concentration camps. And the China of Mao Zedong was very pro-Islam. Mao Zedong was a friend of the Nation of Islam. And the Chinese government took a very unfortunate turn in turning all of these Muslims, and then China gets hit with corona. Again, Allah speaks in or communicates in hints and signs. The NBA just canceled its season, remarkably. Only weeks after the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan presented to the world how his grandson was barred from the NBA for no reason other than his name is Farrakhan. And once the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put that out to the world and let the world know that the NBA took an anti-Farrakhan stance, which is what it was. And by taking an anti-Farrakhan stance, the NBA took a stance against the Messiah. And now, for the first time ever, you have to suspend your season, taking tremendous financial loss, and everybody associated, the networks, everybody is suffering because of Corona. So Allah uses the devil to execute his will against those who are the target of Allah's punitive will. So I see the devil in the Corona pandemic on the immediate level, but I also see Allah involved on a higher level.
And what would be that higher level?
What do you mean? What would be the high? Why would Allah
I'm just
allow
thinking,
a Corona pandemic?
well, yeah, because
again, when you look at the map that I see, Europe, if the maps are true, Europe is up in flames. I mean, Italy has quarantined the whole country, and the number of deaths, I don't know what Italy did to the Trump administration, but I know what Italy did to Africa. I know Italy's offense to God. I know Europe's offense to God. And so now it could be that tomorrow the map comes out and Africa is inflamed with Corona. I don't know. But right now, just going on the data available right now, it's white folks. Corona. The people who are suffering for Corona are the exact opposite of the people who suffer from Ebola. The same people who made Corona or COVID-19 likely are the same people who made Ebola. African people in Africa suffer from Ebola. And now it could be, I don't know that it is the case. I don't know. So let me say that. But it looks like it could be the case that the West unleashed COVID-19 on the current administration's two main geopolitical enemies, Iran and China. And that's why the initial map had all of the cases concentrated in China and Iran. So Satan unleashed it on their enemies, but they are suffering the chickens coming home, the biological chickens coming home to roost. And so the target was Iran and China, but now all of Europe almost is up in flames.
then is Allah's plan for retribution then would be punishing them through this coronavirus? And then would that then, for all of us who have suffered at the hands of white supremacy, then we would be restored through the, am I following?
Now, let me be real clear. I am not qualified to speak the will of Allah that has not been already spoken by the one who is qualified, the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. I'm speculating. I'm looking at the data as it is available. And since we're talking about something, this is what it looks like to me. I am not privy to the undisclosed will of Allah. When he discloses it to the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan, who is the one that is the communicator of God's will today. then we can be sure. What I'm doing right now is purely speculating, looking at the data as it appears, and it can change tomorrow. Like I said, tomorrow a map can come out and Africa is totally in flames. But I don't think it is insignificant that the map as it exists right now has Europe inflamed with corona, China and Iran, and almost all of the map in Africa is unhit. And I'll close on this note. It makes me think of a Newsweek article I saw as a college student. I never forget this. The cover story was The Agony of Africa. And it had on the cover of Newsweek a emaciated African child. The cover story was about all of the various sufferings of Africa through famine, through disease, through war. And the whole article was outlined in green, black, and red. So every excerpt, they're making mock because it came at the height of the Afrocentric movement, that mad at Leonard Jeffries in New York. So in the midst of the Afrocentric movement, Newsweek drops The Agony of Africa and all the suffering that Africa was experiencing, and they framed that suffering in green, black, and red. And so with the agony of Africa in mind, agony that was imposed on Africa by Europe. And now today, we're witnessing the agony of Europe, the agony of Italy, the agony of white folks in Africa is missed in this agony. If that data stands, I think is very significant.
Well, I know I'm going to be very curious to see how this evolves and continue to look for the messages, the spiritual messages in that. But let's move on to something that you are really well known for, your research. So I have read your How to Kill God, the Murder of Michael Jackson, and its message for hip hop and Black America.
Well, thank you for suffering through the 100 pages.
Yeah, no, it was definitely I didn't suffer through. So this is part of your second volume of Understanding the Assault on the Black Man. It's part of your new book that you're releasing, The Pot Plot. So my initial thoughts, I was just like, you really compiled all the research available and presented, we're going to get into the details of your article, but you presented it here. And my first initial thought was like, you know, Crime TV better watch out for Dr. Wesley. They ain't got nothing on you, man. Yeah. Investigative news, like you're here to stay. I was just blown away. And then, you know, you're the king of footnotes, and I like to check footnotes. And so I was
You're
like,
the queen of checking footnotes.
I was like, yes, his footnotes check out. Okay. So, but before we get into it, and since this is, I believe, the last chapter of the Pot Plot, let's first, since we are in season 4 and it has been a while, kind of go over what your book is about and then how people should think in relation to what we're going to go over today for the rest of the book.
So, Understanding the Assault, Volume 2, of course, it's a second volume to our first title, Understanding the Assault on the Black Man, Black Manhood, and Black Masculinity.
Yeah.
In Volume 1, of course, the focus was on the Black man, Black manhood, and Black masculinity, which, there's no redundancy there. Black man as distinct from Black masculinity, as distinct from Black manhood. They're interrelated, but they're distinct. And what we document is the architecture of the assault on all three.
Yeah.
Volume 2, our vision and focus expands beyond the Black man. Our focus is a chemical assault. The scientific assault on the Black man, the Black woman, and the Black child. So our focus in volume 2 was the assault on all of Black America. It is most of Black life and most of the crises of Black life in America. It's not by accident. As I drive up and down 79th Street here, I observe us, and it's a very remarkable experience when you or we find ourselves or place ourselves in the hardest hit areas of Black America. Just witness us. Witness us visually, witness how we move, witness us mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
Black people have ailments that we don't even know why, and we've normalized just having ailments. Right? We've normalized it.
Mm-hmm.
And the harder hit the Black community, the more the profile fits that. What we document in volume 2 in particular, in 800 pages and 2,000 footnotes, is that there's a reason for it. Mom is limping. Mom has a pain in her leg and she don't know why, but she just lives with it. We live with mystery pains and ailments. We just live with it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's we can actually trace the source of Mom's limp. We can trace the source of Dad's ailment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the direct result of the weaponization of everything that Black folks come in contact with. Everything has been weaponized against us. The air we breathe, the food we eat, to the music we listen to has been scientifically weaponized. And so volume 2 documents the architecture of the scientific assault on Black America. And the reason this book concludes with Michael Jackson,
mm-hmm.
the concluding chapter is How to Kill a God, the murder of Michael Jackson and its message for hip hop in Black America. It is because Michael Jackson, his life and his death, proves to be, they say it in literature, is a figure of speech called synecdoche. Figure of speech that means the part of something can represent the whole, or the whole can represent the part. Michael Jackson, a Black god. Michael Jackson was a god. This is true. What is a god? A god is a being of power and force. And when you hear white folks, as they did, talk of Michael Jackson as the most influential human being on the planet, that's power and force. So in killing Michael Jackson, they killed a god, they murdered a god. And I say Michael Jackson's life and his death is synecdoche for all of Black America.
Mm-hmm.
Because in their method of murdering Michael Jackson, they've normalized that method of murder. In the way Michael Jackson, the method used to murder that Black god, has been made trendy in Black life. And so in our report, we have Juice World within Michael Jackson. There's a sense in why it's not arbitrary.
Mhm.
We document that Michael Jackson was deliberately murdered. He didn't die by accident or by negligence. He was deliberately murdered. Well, brother Dr. Wesley, Juice World popped pills himself and collapsed in the Chicago airport there in Midway. How are you comparing the two? I think there's a real comparison.
Mhm.
The ones responsible for Michael Jackson's murder, the circle of people responsible for the murder of that black god, Michael Jackson, they happen to be the same ones that commandeered hip hop. And they happen to be the ones responsible for using hip hop to normalize in black culture the very method of death that was used to kill Michael Jackson. You call it death by polypharmacy. Death by polypharmacy. Michael Jackson wasn't killed by propofol. Michael Jackson had a very deadly cocktail of drugs running through his veins.
Mhm.
Polypharmacy, the synergy of a number of specific drugs that was used to murder Michael Jackson. Juice World died by polypharmacy. He had several drugs coursing through his veins when he collapsed at Midway. What's the connection? How Juice World was murdered by the ones who commandeered hip hop. Why'd I say that? Juice World said he was in 5th grade. Juice World struggled with drug addiction that is a consequence of listening to Future. Juice World said that it was Future that turned him on to lean and Percocets and drug abuse when he was in 5th grade. Future lamented that and then took stock of how many other hundreds of thousands of young black boys he turned on to drugs that he did not abuse. Future's most drug-soaked album, Monster, when he recorded that, he was totally sober. But he created a whole generation of young black drug addicts. But again, where's the murder involved here?
Well, do we want to set it up to where we go from the beginning of all your connections first?
Yeah, but I want to complete this thought,
Mm.
and then we'll land that plane. This is the context of the title. Message. What's the relation between Michael Jackson and Juice World?
Mhm.
I want to make that connection. Future lamented turning on Juice World and so many other hundreds and thousands of young black people to drugs that he did not abuse like that. And he said, or he hinted that his role as the drum major of drug addiction hip hop, that his role was contractually mandated of him through his record label. Epic, it's his record label. He was under a 7-album contract with them. So the albums that Future, the drum major of drug addiction rap, the drug-soaked music that he produced, he was under obligation to his label. And what we document is who runs the labels. The same ones who run the labels are the same ones who were around Michael Jackson and murdered Michael Jackson, literally, by individual. And so it's not as they murdered Michael Jackson through polypharmacy and mafia language. The specific hit job and a mafia contract was put out on Michael Jackson's life. We'll get to that. But the specific hit job is called a syringe job. Murder by chemical ingestion or chemical injection. That's how Michael was murdered, by a syringe job. Juice WRLD was murdered by a syringe job himself. Yeah, he ingested the Percocets himself. He drank the lean himself, but at a more distant level. The only reason he sipped lean is because he was influenced to do so by music controlled by a conglomerate that deliberately used hip hop to normalize drug taking. They deliberately, hip hop as the vehicle for drug use in Black America. That did not happen naturally. It was the same people who were on the periphery, in the shadows of Michael Jackson's murder, and the same ones that are responsible for transitioning hip hop from an anti-drug culture to a drug abuse culture. And so Juice WRLD was murdered, but at a distance from the same circle of people who murdered Michael Jackson. But the only difference is, in Michael Jackson's case, there was only a 1 degree or 2 degree separation between Michael Jackson and the ultimate murders, Conrad Murray and Alvin Arnold Klein being the hired chemical hitmen, but they were pawns. With Juice WRLD, the murderers are the same, but they're at further remove. They're at 3 and 4 degrees removed. So this is why the murder of Michael Jackson concludes 800 pages documenting the scientific assault on Black America, because the way Michael Jackson was targeted, the way he was lied upon, villainized, made broke, robbed, and then murdered, the exact same way that individual God was targeted and then murdered in such a way, is the story of Black life in America, especially Black male life in America. So by looking and seeing how Michael Jackson was handled, it throws the contours of Black life in greater relief. The Black man in particular can have a clearer understanding of what he experiences on various levels by understanding what happened to Michael Jackson.
I want to back up a little bit. Something that you said earlier about in the Black community, we normalize ailments. It made me think of when I used to work in hospital settings, and I'd meet patients and they would say high blood pressure, hypertension runs in my family, or diabetes runs in my family. We really do normalize it, because it's not that these things genetically run in our family. It's your eating habits run in your family, and through your particular eating habits and perhaps the stress loads that you have at your job is why you're experiencing these ailments. But I do think it's interesting, because you can also see that in hip hop now too. It's where people will use the legacy of drug addiction in their family as if it is and there is some research on that, but genetically, this is the reason why they're on this path where it's more so probably your association. So if you're associating with a group of people who are pushing drugs on you, you're probably gonna do drugs. So that made me instantly think of that. And then it's interesting though. So you start off in your report though saying a quote from where Michael Jackson asks if they're going to kill the artist. So Michael Jackson starts off knowing or speculating that at some point he is going to be murdered. He mentioned
he knew,
and
he knew who was gonna murder him.
So you say, based off your report, that it's going to be between these three associations: the Jewish mafia, the gay mafia, and was it the homosexual mafia? Or
let me read to you what I'm
you.
saying. To summarize, 110 pages. There is compelling evidence that the death of Michael Jackson on June 25th, 2009 was no accident. It was not the result of negligence, but of deliberate decision-making. Michael Jackson was murdered. It was not propofol that killed Michael, but a chemical cocktail, only one ingredient of which was propofol. Just as Dr. Conrad Murray, the black doctor, just as Dr. Conrad Murray was clearly the fall guy in a much bigger conspiracy, so too was propofol, the fall drug of that much bigger chemical cocktail that killed Michael. These charges are sustained by a tremendous amount of evidence, including, most importantly, the explosive testimony of a government witness who was a high-level investigator out of the state attorney general's office, as well as the detailed revelations of a whistleblower, one involved in the plot who spilled a whole lot of beans. And this is to your question, and this is very important. If we were to, or when we titled the show, the title of this show should not be The Murder of Michael Jackson, but the title of this show should be The Vindication of Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was neither gay nor a child molester. Rather, he was vindictively framed by a circle of gay child molesters. And then he was murdered. Hollywood's Jewish gay mafia, with its pedophile ring, targeted Michael Jackson with a slanderous media and legal campaign, falsely charging him with their own crime, gay pedophilia. And then, after sinking Michael in tremendous debt, a rich entertainment conglomerate organized a comeback concert, which, according to the key whistleblower, was only a cover for a murder that was planned. There never was a plan to go to London and have 10, much less 50 concerts. That was a cover for the murder of Michael Jackson that was already planned, in the hijacking of his tremendously valuable asset, his Beatles catalog. The convergence of interests that is responsible for Michael Jackson's murder. It involves elements from the Italian mafia. There was a contract put out on Michael's life. We know that from Frank DeLeo, the mafia-associated manager whom Michael fired. But then when he was put in a state of continuous chemical confusion, Frank DeLeo was brought back in. Frank DeLeo, before the mafia murdered him because he fell out of favor with the ones who he helped hijack Michael's estate. Frank DeLeo confessed that a mafia contract was put out on Michael Jackson, but those Italian mafia elements worked in cahoots with Jewish mafia elements, Al Malnick, Jack Gordon, LaToya's husband, the Jew mafia, and the Italian mafia elements worked with Jewish mafia elements and worked with the gay mafia elements. David Geffen. So Michael, AEG, who was responsible for that fake concert run, This Is It. And also, by the way, when Prince was killed by drugs, his concert promoter was the same AEG. There's not a black, what these details highlight. There's not a single black celebrity death that is not under suspicion now. In fact, we could say more. Let me say this, and let me back up.
Okay.
The context of not just the murder of Michael Jackson, but when we think about Prince, when we think about Whitney Houston, when we think about James Brown, go all the way back to Jimi Hendrix, the real context of all of that was given by Randy Quaid and his wife Evie. You know, who saw Independence Day? You know, the crazy dude, the alcoholic dude, that's Randy Quaid, right? Oscar nominated, great actor. His wife Evie, a Hollywood it girl. Well, a month after Michael's murder, Randy Quaid and Evie Quaid had to flee the country. They went to Canada seeking asylum, and before Canada's immigration board, Randy Quaid and Evie Quaid said they are seeking asylum in Canada because back home in the States, there is a group of what they call star whackers who sought to kill them. They said these star whackers killed Michael Jackson, and Evie Quaid and Michael Jackson shared the same doctor, Conrad Murray. Conrad Murray is the one who delivered the fatal chemical cocktail. So the Quaids had inside knowledge. They went before Canada's immigration board pleading for asylum, saying to the world that, quote, Hollywood is killing its stars. Michael Jackson was killed by the star whackers, David Carradine, Heath Ledger, and the star whackers that he describes as the gay mafia, is the Italian mafia, is the very elements that were around Michael Jackson. So that's the context. And he said the star whackers kill, Hollywood is killing its stars on a very high level money grab. They will get the star in in a project in which the star is insured, and they kill the star, they whack the star to collect the insurance. And I close on this. So Michael Jackson was murdered June 25th, 2019. His murder was caused by the synergy of drugs delivered to him by Dr. Conrad Murray, AEG's employee, Dr. Arnold Klein, AEG's employee. Their drugs killed Michael June 25th, 2019. Hours later, AEG filed papers to collect the insurance on Michael's death. And the insurance policy had this specific clause, a drug abuse clause in it, that if Michael Jackson died by illicit drug use, AEG couldn't collect the nearly $1 billion for the 50 shows. However, if Michael Jackson died from non-illicit drug overdose, then AEG can collect nearly $1 million in insurance. And hours after Michael fell victim to a chemical concoction that AEG employees murdered him with, AEG filed for insurance paper. And one last detail, this is the most important detail. There's a reason the murder had to happen on June 25th, because the whole jig would have been up for AEG on June 26th. What I mean, the whole point of the star whackers is to whack the star for the insurance connected with the project they're dealing with, because all of these Hollywood stars, when they're in their projects, a movie or whatever, David Carradine he said they got him for his insurance. He's doing this show over in Asia. When the first talks with AEG occurred in January between Michael Jackson and the Jew, Randy Phillips, CEO of AEG Live, and it's not immaterial that he's Jewish. When the first conversations occurred, January 2009, Michael was clean of drugs. Michael had been clean for several years. Michael was not a drug abuser. Michael had beat the first addiction that was imposed on him. Vindication of Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is not a druggie. He was not a druggie any more than he was a child abuser. Michael Jackson was chemically assaulted the same way the black men and women on 79th Street are chemically assaulted. But in January 2019, Michael had been clean. He beat his addiction. AEG signed that contract with him. Sought insurance for him, because that's the game. Lloyd's of London sent their physician to do a physical on Michael, because they weren't going to insure him without a physical. They did a 5-hour physical on Michael. They took blood tests. In January 2009, Michael was in tip-top shape. He ain't have no drugs in his system. So Lloyd's of London approved the first insurance policy, but it was for 10 shows, 80 million worth 80 million euros. AEG, without Michael's consent, expanded the concert run from 10 to 50, not because they expected Michael would do 50. They never intended to step foot in London, but because the insurance policy on 50 shows then went from 80 million euros to $1.5 billion. However, with the expansion of the shows, Lloyd's of London, the insurance company, required a second physical. But by the time the second physical was to come around, AEG had already chemically assaulted Michael, because the point was to have him default on the contract so they can seize his assets, which were put up as collateral. But look, they wanted Lord AEG and the ultimate head of AEG, another Jew, Philip Anschutz, a Jewish billionaire, Philip Anschutz. The second AEG required a second physical exam in order to expand the insurance policy. Do you know when that second physical exam was scheduled to take place? June 26, 2009. And by that time, Michael Jackson had been devastated. Michael Jackson would have failed that exam. And if that exam took place and Michael failed it, the jig was up for AEG. The jig was up for the $1.5 billion clause. So on June 19th, Michael's fate was determined. June 19th, Michael's fate was determined. They determined to pull the plug on Michael. They determined that they would trigger the drug death clause. Because if Michael Jackson died by non-illicit drug abuse, then they get the insurance. But if a living Michael fails that second exam, they get nothing. So on June 19th, they decided to pull the plug, not on the show, but to pull the plug on Michael Jackson. And that's when everything was set in place for his murder on June 25th, avoiding the June 26th physical exam that he was sure to fail, and AEG would have gotten nothing. And so they killed Michael on the 25th.
Many people have denied the existence of this so-called gay mafia. Yet in your
Peace and blessings. My name is Carmela Muhammad with the Foodie Spot, located at 7350 South Stony Island, Chicago. And we were blessed to be able to provide food for Doing the Math with Dr. Wesley.
Akira's is
Go ahead, Sister Janita. Unmute your mic.
Wow. What a first part of our series. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions on this one. If you have any questions, you kind of got left on a cliffhanger right there. So I know many of you are like, all right, oh my gosh, what happens next? Well, if you tune in tomorrow at the same time, you can know what the next steps are. And as we both learn all of this together. So we do have a couple Patreons on. And so for those of you, I know Gabriel, you asked the question, but because you're one of our Patreons, which we are very grateful for, by the way, without our Patreons, we wouldn't be able to deliver our show at the high quality that we are delivering at. So we are very grateful for that, for all of your contributions. You all are the reasons why we are here today. But we have sent a link to you, so you actually are able to come on to the show, and you can ask Dr. Wesley your question directly, as opposed to me taking your questions. And for other people who aren't our Patreons, I will take your questions and ask Dr. Wesley for you. So for those of our Patreons, go to your Patreon inbox or your email, and then you will be able to join our live stream, and we'll bring you on to the show so you can ask your questions. I see Beverly says, wow, wow, wow. Devil is right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I in?
Yeah. Oh, good. You joined us.
Oh man, sitting, listening to our show. We have a great show.
Yeah.
We got a great show. Do the math with Dr. Wesley and Sister Janita. Shout out Brother Warren. Shout out Brother Rochester. Shout out Brother Mike. All of the Do the Math staff and team. Do the Math team. I hear or I'll read the comments that the show was too short. I appreciate that sentiment. That means you were able to enjoy, follow and enjoy the show so far. We broke it up into 3 segments so as to not overtax the audience. Come back tomorrow for part 2. I just want to say this, Sister Janita, some reflections that came to me as I was watching.
Mm-hmm.
The discussion on the gay mafia, and we're going to get more into it, I believe, tomorrow. But if there was any doubt, it's really fascinating. Those of you who have read my article know that I went into very graphic, dark detail of the dark underbelly of Hollywood and Hollywood's organized gay pedophile culture that undergirds Hollywood. I went into great detail in this report. And then Netflix debuts their series called Hollywood. And shout out to Wakil. I had no intentions of watching it. I didn't know what it was about. But I was put on to it. That series on Netflix, Hollywood, it's as if the producers read my report and wanted to make a series out of it. Now, of course, they didn't, but the point is that show, Hollywood on Netflix, anyone who doubts what we have documented about the gay mafia's pedophile underbelly of Hollywood, well, the gay mafia's organized control and activities within Hollywood. If you doubt what we said, check out Hollywood on Netflix. The whole series is about the gay mafia in Hollywood. It was very amazing to watch what we document put on screen like that. So I definitely, it's hard to stomach. In fact, it's not a documentary, it's a series, but it's all about the gay mafia and its shenanigans, if you will, in Hollywood. And if you're a straight black man like me, it's hard to watch that stuff because it's so dense with it, but it validates and confirms what we said here about the gay mafia in Hollywood.
You know, I remember when I first heard the term the gay mafia, it was through you. And when I first heard the term, I didn't know how I felt about it. I felt a little uncomfortable, especially with my training and in working in LGBTQ communities. I was very concerned. I'm like, the gay mafia. Okay, is this term causing more harm? You know, is it appropriate to even be exploring this? And obviously I kept being on the show, so I kept exploring it. And then when you release this report, I believe
and I don't have the document in front of me, but I think it was either you cited the Rolling Stones article or an article by I think the Washington Post, which I could have them wrong, but I know it's in the document, and it talks about either it was the Rolling Stones talks about this elite gay group, and I was like, oh, so in court documents, the gay mafia has actually been a term that people have used before prior to all this, and so it was just really
I did not innovate the gay mafia.
Right, yeah.
I innovate terms, and I take credit for the terms that I innovate. And I get real sensitive when people take my coinage and claim it as their own. But I did not innovate the gay mafia. The gay mafia is real. The gay mafia is language that was initially coined by those who ran up against the gay mafia in Hollywood. But a time will come when the gay mafia took ownership of that language. And so, no, but it's in public records. The gay mafia is language used in a public discourse regarding this organized body of power wielders in Hollywood and in music that happen to be both gay and Jewish. I see Brother Gabriel says his question is how do you find those references? Does he find it all by using keywords on Google? I wish it was that easy. Or in other words, when he gets a topic to investigate, how does he tackle the task of finding relevant sources and info? Very good question, Brother Gabriel, and thank you for your question. On one level, I can answer it. On another level, I can't. Because very few of these subjects I have taken up in great detail. Very few of them was I looking to take these subjects up. In most cases, I was working on other subjects, but Allah blessed me with an eye for detail.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been my blessing. So when I because you're asking a methodological question. So I'm going to put on my academic hat, my professorial hat. When we wrote the book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam, and it generated so much controversy in the Afrocentric community who wanted to make Islam a white Arab religion and use Dr. Ben and John Henry Clark as the credentials for their claim. And I came out with a book proving Islam's African origins. What's interesting is that I read the same books that Dr. Ben read. I read the same books that Dr. Leonard Jeffries read, but you say you guys came out with different conclusions. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the reasons is because we may read the same books, but we don't see the same things. Allah bless me to see a detail and recognize what I'm looking at.
All right.
Pull it out and connect the dots. And that's what most people who just read, they miss the mark because they don't catch the detail. And so, Brother Gabriel, when I do research, most of these subjects were not subjects that I set out to do, but in the course of doing other research, I would see a detail, then I would follow the footnote. And that usually opens up, follow the footnote.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever just go to Google and, well, I can't say ever, but on the serious research, I don't go on Google and say, no, Google find me the gay mafia killed Michael Jackson. I don't even know what to ask Google. I don't know what to ask Siri. But it's a process of following footsteps, following footnotes, always following footnotes, and it opens up the treasure chest. It opens up the narrative just by following footsteps without presupposition, because I don't know nothing, because I wasn't looking for this. So that's usually how it happens, dear brother Jabril. When I wrote the piece on Ifa in Islam, on Yoruba in Islam, I wasn't looking for that, but Allah blessed me. Whenever I tackle a subject and I go head on, Allah blesses me to put my foot in it and produce a definitive work on it, because I know that God is in the details and truth resides in nuance.
Yeah.
And so because that's my methodological rule book, I followed that. And so I followed the footnotes where they lead me. I follow the footprints where they lead me.
Footnotes are amazing. Yeah. I love footnotes. I love citations. You know, I think when you are reading an article, and you'll see a lot of the times people are like citing things, and then you go to the site and it doesn't exist, or you go to the site and it actually gives you, they've summarized what it says, and it's like what they summarized or what they paraphrased wasn't actually what the real source is saying. So I think it's always important to follow the footnotes to make sure that the author that you're reading is actually giving you accurate and present information. I mean, incorrect information.
And that's why I use footnotes, which is against the current industry standard of endnotes. I choose to be throwback in a sense and use footnotes rather than endnotes for a very specific reason. And also, I don't buy a book that has no footnote apparatus.
Right.
Even if you have a bibliography, all scholars know a lot of mischief can be made with a bibliography.
Yeah.
You're making claims, but you don't have a footnote apparatus, but you think you impressing us with a bibliography. No, you game it. So I don't countenance a book if it doesn't have endnotes or footnotes. And I use footnotes, which are right there on the page that you're reading, versus endnotes that are footnotes at the end of the book. I use footnotes because I know I say things that my reports are always inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
Some would say I make big claims. And I guess that's true, but I document them big time. But I don't make you wait till you get to the end of the chapter to find out whether what I said was credible or not. So you see right at the bottom of the page where the statement I made that offended you, right at the bottom of that page, you get the footnote. You don't have to wait to get to the end of the chapter, or you don't have to turn to the end of the chapter.
I legitimately get blown away when people are like, "Yeah, you're making stuff up." I'm like, "Did they not see his footnotes?" Like I've been working with you going on like 2.5 years or 2 years and some change, and I'm like, he footnotes like
every single thing. And if you go to those footnotes, you'd be surprised. I'm like, we're talking about major publications that are saying what he's saying. You've just synthesized it all and then, reinterpret it to what it needs to be for Black America.
The detail.
Right.
Synthesizing the detail. See, what a lot of people don't do, a lot of people can't pay attention to detail or recognize detail when it's there. And then the second step is a lot of people don't know how to collect the data or the detail and then synthesize it coherently.
Right.
That's the next step. So I always have, like, for example, this is the typed notes of my COVID-19 report. This is just the notes. This is 160 pages of nothing but data, raw data. And so the report is a distillation and synthesis of 160 pages of just raw data. This ain't the report. This is just the typed raw data. The report comes when I synthesize the data. And that's where you get the narrative. That's where nuance is important. That's where we have to be careful and responsible with how we handle data. But that's the process. One, recognizing the value of a detail, collecting the valuable details, data, synthesizing them into a credible, coherent narrative.
Yeah, and you're really good at that. So Thomas Horn wants to know, Dr. Wesley, in the near future, are you going to conduct research and reveal the murder of Prince as well?
I would like to, if Allah gives me that, because I have to be honest. All of my big projects, I go by the spirit. Like I said, I didn't sit down and say, you know what? I want to investigate Michael Jackson's murder. I didn't sit down and say, you know what? I want to investigate how Satan is weaponizing weed. I didn't know anything about that. I wasn't looking for that. So my major projects come to me because Allah put that spirit in me. But this project absolutely has let me know that the death of Prince, the death of Whitney Houston, the death of James Brown, all of these deaths have to be reopened and reinvestigated because we have so thoroughly documented the architecture of the murder of Michael Jackson. And we now know that Michael Jackson's murder wasn't in isolation. As I mentioned on that show, AEG, who were the paymasters for the chemical hitmen that murdered Michael Jackson, Dr. Conrad Murray and Dr. Arnold Klein. Their paymaster was AEG. AEG was Prince's promoter when he died. There is a mysterious figure, Tommy, a manager in Michael Jackson's camp, a Lebanese manager in Michael Jackson's camp, who was part of the infrastructure of those who were responsible for Michael Jackson's demise. On the night Whitney Houston was found in her hotel, non-responsive, Tommy's people was in the room. Thomas Horn, I believe there are connections with all of these deaths. I believe the star whackers, in the words of the Quays, I believe they are the context to understand so much of the death in Hollywood. So will there be a report on the murder of Prince in the future? I don't know, but I do believe this report on the murder of Michael shines light and give context to the death of Prince, the death of Whitney Houston, the death of James Brown, going back, and we start with Elvis Presley. So, inshallah, maybe that report will come out, but my major projects are dependent on whatever spirit, however Allah guides my spirit.
Nice. Our next question is, at one time, the mighty FOI was protecting Michael Jackson. Were they removed by the Jackson family?
I can't speak for the Jackson family. The FOI, but not just the FOI, our chief of staff at the time, Brother Leonard Farrakhan, worked with Michael Jackson and his estate, and the FOI did security for Michael Jackson. Shout out to Brother Michael Ahmed, another FOI. He was Brother Michael Jackson's personal assistant. So the Nation of Islam has had a close, loving relationship with Michael Jackson. No better exemplified than the very loving and close relationship between Michael Jackson and the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. They were close friends. Now, there did become a controversy in the media over Michael Jackson's friendship with the Nation of Islam in the presence of the FOI. I know the FOI, when Michael Jackson surrounded himself with the FOI, the Jewish mafia stepped back, and this is in 2003, 2004, 2005. Al Malnick and the Jewish mafia that were plotting against Michael Jackson in 2002 and 2003, when Michael Jackson surrounded himself with the FOI. Jewish mafia, they fell back, and they had to plot their plot from a greater distance because Michael Jackson surrounded himself with his family. In the Nation of Islam, in the media, made a big fuss about it. Were there members of the family? As some of the reports said, I have read some of the media reports that said that there was some controversy in the family. I don't know. I have not spoken to the family. I don't know that the media is reporting or trying to create a problem in the family, because that's what they do. So I don't know, but Michael Jackson and the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan remained very close friends till Michael's untimely demise.
Now, I believe in part 2 of our series, we're actually going to talk about that a little bit more, or is that more towards part 3?
I think it's 2.
Well, if you want to know more details, that means come back tomorrow for part 2, because we get into this a little bit more. I was actually really surprised, but I'm not going to say why I was surprised, because, you got to tune in and then you'll find out. We do have another question. Who got the Beatles album archived? Did it go back to Paul McCartney?
Well, no. It's in the hands of Michael's enemies. Now, Paul McCartney said, he wasn't going to pay for his material. The publishing company that housed the Beatles catalog and other catalogs, Michael purchased it outright in 1985 and have full ownership of it. And as a consequence of the false charges of 1993, the first set of false charges, child molestation charges of 1993, the financial fallout of that was very great for Michael. Michael became cash broke at a point such that he had to mortgage and even sell half of the catalog to Sony. So after 1993, the catalog, 50% ownership was Michael's and 50% ownership was Sony's. Sony coveted full ownership of that catalog, as did others. David Geffen told Michael Jackson not to make that purchase. David Geffen was supposed to be Michael Jackson's financial advisor, and he advised Michael Jackson not to make that purchase in 1985. And that purchase ended up proving Michael Jackson's genius. And it made him a marked man because everybody wanted that purchase, wanted that catalog after he purchased it. And everybody around him was finagling to get it. At the time Michael Jackson was murdered, he still had 50% ownership. Sony still had 50%, and they were still coveting the other 50%. And they were working with others, Tommy Mottola, connected with the Jewish mafia figure Al Malnick, and they plotted together to rob Michael Jackson of his catalog. But at the end of the day, how it happened, you hear in the news, Michael Jackson estate.
Mm-hmm.
We think of Michael Jackson's children, Paris and Prince. So we think of Michael Jackson's mom and dad. That's not the Michael Jackson estate. The Michael Jackson estate was still houses the catalog. The Michael Jackson estate is controlled by Michael Jackson's bitter enemies. John Blanca, first and foremost, who was the lawyer for Michael Jackson, who negotiated the 1985 deal, but who Michael Jackson later fired because John Blanca was conspiring with Tommy Mottola to rob Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson found out and fired John Blanca. And when AEG, when they got Michael Jackson drugged and chemically incapacitated, they reduced Michael Jackson in the June of 2009, when they reduced him to the state of learned helplessness. They brought John Blanca back in and had Michael Jackson sign him as lawyer, his lawyer over his estate. And now John Blanca, Michael Jackson's dreaded enemy, is in control of Michael Jackson's estate, in control of the catalog. And John Blanca had the nerve to say to his grieving mother, Sister Catherine, John Blanca said these words to her: "I am Michael Jackson now." So that's who is in control of Michael Jackson's catalog. They successfully hijacked Michael Jackson's legacy. His enemies have his estate. His enemies have his catalog.
Wow. Do members of the Jackson family believe he was murdered? And have they read your report and research?
I can answer the second part of the question. I don't know. But the first part of the question is it's definitely yes. The members of Michael Jackson's family early went public with their suspicion that Dr. Conrad Murray was but the fall guy of a much bigger conspiracy. Sister LaToya gave details and revealed what Michael Jackson said to her about who was going to kill him. Michael Jackson's daughter, Paris, not too long ago, has finally came out and said that her father was murdered and she knows who did it. And she understandably and clearly was nervous, so she didn't want to go too far.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of scared for her. She may have gone a little far because she said that she's going to get, we know who killed my father, and we're gonna get justice. That worried me. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. That worried me because these people whom she's speaking to, they did murder her father. And they got away with it, and the powers are so big. But yes, the family, Joe Jackson, the family has gone on public record acknowledging that Dr. Conrad Murray was a fall guy. I don't know that they know the details as we have been able to put it together. I don't know if they have been able to view the results of our investigation. I hope they do.
Well, if we get everyone to share this, then, you know, that prompts the likelihood that they'll see it and, you know, take a look at your research as well. Cliff Green has an interesting question. He wants to know, how does the gay mafia's agenda impact the Black agenda? Now, I think this is a really interesting question. And one day I would love to have a roundtable discussion with us and perhaps maybe some Black gay scholars, because, you know, one of the things that come out of this question for me is I've seen a lot of people who are Black and in the LGBT community say that when Black people, when we exhibit homophobia, it is no different than, you know, white supremacy. And I always usually have questions about that, just because, you know, white supremacy is really built on an institution. So it's built off of having laws. Black people aren't really able to create a law that prevents a Black gay individual from having their rights or anything like that. But I also don't want to, you know, discount their arguments. I would love to have a roundtable discussion about that, because it seems to be some genuine differences between that. So that's why I thought that question was really interesting, because I was like, that's the first thing that I thought of when I saw this particular question.
Great question. And that is a great question. How does the gay mafia's agenda impact the Black agenda? Our brother, Yasin Bey, or Mos Def, in 2004, he released an important track, The Rape Over. It's 90 seconds. Among the things he says in this song, The Rape Over, was old white men is running this rap shit. Corporate forces running this rap shit. Some tall Israeli is running this rap shit. We poke out our asses for a chance to cash in. Cocaine is running this rap shit. He goes on, he's detailing the architecture of the overseers of hip hop. Right. He says, he ends with quasi homosexuals is running this rap shit. In those 90 seconds, there was no more, to me, no more revealing and penetrating rap 90 seconds ever. When his album dropped, the album The New Danger, the first print had that song on it, but then the second print, that song was missing. The song The Rape Over, that calls out the quasi homosexuals that's running this rap shit. That song was taken off of the album. Why was the song taken off of the album? Well, because Mos Def at the time was on the label Geffen Records. Geffen as in David Geffen.
Mm-hmm.
That was David Geffen's record label, and David Geffen is the reported kingpin of the gay mafia. And what does that say? That's just a hint of the gay mafia that controls Hollywood also controls the music industry. And so the content of hip hop is controlled by the same people who is responsible for the murder of Michael Jackson. The gay agenda does not just determine Hollywood agenda. The gay agenda determines hip hop's agenda.
Thank you. Christopher wants to know, I have a question concerning the opening message of tonight's video concerning COVID-19. What is your view now, a couple months later, about this pandemic, and when will your report on COVID-2 be released?
Great question. In terms of the release of the report, after the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan delivers his highly anticipated message on July 4th, which the world must tune into. I produced the report for him. Once he delivers his message, Allah willing, I will publicly release the report. Great question. As I was listening to my remarks, which were given in March, at the beginning of the pandemic, and before I got so deeply into the research for the report, as I'm on this side of it listening to my remarks, I said, wow. My report, you said, what is my view now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to put detailed flesh on the bone that we laid out in March on the show. My views have not changed, except that I have a much deeper understanding of what I thought I was seeing in March. Now I'm clear on what I'm seeing and what it means. So after the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan's message to the world on July 4th, then we will publish our report.
Did you by chance happen to see what Melinda Gates said, that, you know, for vaccines, that Black people should be the first in line to get the vaccine for COVID?
Yeah, I posted it on my page. Absolutely.
But is that going to be in your report too?
Yes.
I was actually blown away, but not really. But I was blown away in the sense that people always talk about how Bill and Melinda Gates are, you know, philanthropists, and, you know, they've donated a lot of money. People have gone to school because of Bill and Melinda Gates, but not too many people are like further investigated what she said when she's like, yeah, first Black people, then it would be, you know, I think she also said elderly people, then people of color. She didn't say anything about white people. So I guess white people don't need to get the vaccine, just Black people and people of color. And then that will apparently slow down the virus. That's how I understood what she said.
Remember, when we did our awesome show on COVID-19 and the vaccine question.
Yeah.
I took the liberty of making an opening presentation.
Yep.
And I made a number of claims there. one of which I said there that the elite have a vaccine. They've already had a vaccine, and this is why your president and your vice president refuses to wear a mask, because there exists a vaccine. I said that then we are documenting that beyond question. I said then that the process is create the virus and at the same time create the vaccine. That's the protocol. That's a standard operating procedure in biological and chemical warfare research. Produce the biological or chemical weapon, and at the same time produce the therapeutic, the antidote. So when this virus was created, the vaccine was already created. I said that then, and it's proven true. We documented. The other thing I said was, don't get excited. The vaccine that's going to hit the popular market, it ain't going to be that the elite are taking. I said it's going to be a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
And so when Melinda Gates said, and I posted her words on our Facebook, that Black people will be the first ones to get inoculated. And remember, the vaccine program is in the hands of the military. Operation Warp Speed. Trump made the COVID-19 vaccination plan a military operation. And so it's the military that's coming to the Black neighborhood with this Trojan horse COVID-19 vaccine. We said that before it came out. I have to say this. I want to. And when the report comes out, Allah has been blessing us. That's why I waited. So many people went. Now, when you asked me on the show in March about COVID-19,
right?
And I gave my thoughts, and I said, this is just speculation. I said, I don't know. The speculation, it can change tomorrow. I was non-committal. And then after that, you didn't hear anything from me on the subject. I went quiet.
Right.
Everybody was rushing to make these conclusions and they offer their theories that they presented as facts. And they all rushed too quickly. I was very slow because I wanted to know. And I looked and I investigated, and Allah blessed us to draw conclusions out there that only later become popular. I see a question we're thinking about Ralph Barrett. Before Fox News jumped on the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Barrett story, we revealed it before it was public. We revealed the connection between Ralph Barrett and his creation of the COVID-19 or SARS-2 prototype. So we were slow. We took our time so that we can be sure, and Allah blessed us to put information in the public square that later is validated.
Right.
And so our report, which we will release to the public after the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan delivers his message July 4th. But to the question, so the only thing with my remarks in March, I noticed that the map of Africa was relatively free while Europe was in flame. And I said that map can change tomorrow. Well, it's not necessarily that the map of Africa changed tomorrow. But what did happen is whites who were the original carriers, wealthy whites were the original carriers of this virus in America. Some of them deliberately migrated the virus to Black people in America. And that's how COVID-19 became a Black epidemic. And we document that. So now there was a question, but I want to
wait, but before you go on to that though, because since you were talking about Africa, now wasn't it the president of Tanzania who sent in papaya and a goat, and then it tested positive for COVID-19, which the researchers thought that he was sending, the president of Tanzania was sending human samples, right? How does that relate to? Does that inflate the numbers that perhaps they're trying to say that Africa or the continent of Africa is having outbreaks of COVID-19 when in fact they're probably not? If a fruit is testing positive for it,
right? There's a lot of inflation of numbers. There's a lot of deception. Absolutely. So much of what is in the mass media and so much of what is coming from our public officials is spin, is deception. Certainly, these numbers have been inflated. I can't really speak to that particular case, but yes, the numbers definitely have been inflated. Now, Brother Edred Aziz Owen says, have you seen the 2 U.S. patents of Ralph Barrett? I have those patents, yes. On enhanced transmissibility of the COVID virus. Yes, Ralph Barrett, of course, is the grandfather of coronavirology, in particular synthetic coronavirology. Ralph Barrett has been creating coronaviruses in his lab since 1992. And there's this effort now with Fox News and the Trump White House and people to pin the birth of this monster. This is the language they're using. Pin the birth of this monster on the Chinese scholar scientist that worked with Ralph Barrett, Dr. Zhen Li Shi, who works at the Wuhan. She's over the Wuhan lab. All of the talk is about this Chinese doctor, but she learned her techniques from Ralph Barrett. She got her money from Peter Daszak. The Wuhan Institute is an American institute. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is more an American institute than a Chinese institute. So the focus on the Chinese scientist, Dr. Zhen Li Shi, is misdirection because it's white American scientists who are above the Chinese scientists' pay grade in this situation. So do you think the U.S. in China first as I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to read it too, so we're on the same page. I was going to say, so do you think the U.S. released it in China first as a Trojan horse, similar to HIV amongst gays?
I do believe the evidence is strong that the first virus America released in China, and then in November of 2019, but that wasn't the virus that engulfed the world. The virus that engulfed the world was that virus manipulated by, no doubt, the state of Israel. And the state of Israel released it first on Iran. And when it was released, when this new version, this more aggressive version, was released on Iran, there was blowback and it blew up all over Europe and then in the US. So that is what our report documents.
Let's see if we have any more questions. Someone said, I saw an article today saying they're testing a vaccine in Africa. Have you seen that, Dr. Wesley? Oh,
Yes.
And then we have this from Dell.
Yes. They're always testing vaccines in Africa. That's how Africa suffered its Ebola outbreak. Because the U.S. military and affiliates were testing an Ebola vaccine in West Africa. But that vaccine was Trojan horse for the virus. And that's how the Ebola outbreak occurred. It is a standard operating procedure to create a virus, create a vaccine, the authentic vaccine, but then introduce the virus in a target population through a Trojan horse vaccine.
Have you seen movies like I Am Legend or Hunger Games? It's just, as all these things are happening, I remember seeing those movies and thinking that it was just Hollywood. In I Am Legend, the government releases this disease, and then I think his child, or it was Will Smith's character, they were the only one that had the cure that saved humanity. And then in Hunger Games, with just being in shelter-in-place orders, right? In Hunger Games, you have all these little districts where people have to stay, and then eventually people can go fight for their district to get like basic needs or something like that. I don't really remember the details of the Hunger Games, but
Contagion.
Yeah, right. So it's like
Contagion.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Fauci gave the green light to that movie, and that movie is based on the work of the usual suspects that we've identified in our report. It is their work that is behind the movie Contagion, which is why Dr. Fauci, who is the paymaster for the architects of COVID-19, Fauci is the paymaster. Fauci, through the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, along with its partner, the USA Institute of Military Research, USAMRID, Military Infectious and Disease Research, the U.S. Army Military Institute of Military Research of Infectious Diseases, and the Dr. Fauci's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. These two institutes constitute the biodefense infrastructure of the United States. The biodefense infrastructure is the infrastructure that produces biological weapons and the therapeutics for them. That Dr. Fauci is half of that structure. He's a paymaster for those who did the research which led to
those movies.
19 outbreak.
That's crazy. Dell Dixon wants to know, why do you love the Minister Louis Farrakhan, Mr. Muhammad?
Legitimate question is why any Black person alive would not love the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan and his value to Black people is put on the highest display now during this COVID crisis. Because this was a time where we were in desperate need of guidance, of sound guidance. And all of these leaders jumping out in front of Black people, giving poor guidance,
Right.
leading Black people
Right.
to super spreader events. I'm so thankful that that Allah gave us the Honorable Brother Mr. Farrakhan that told us to stay away from those super spreader events. You didn't see us at the protests. We are not going to participate in protesting for an aim that we don't agree with, the aim of police reform. We put no stake in that. We are not going to protest that. But in the midst of that, potential super spreader events were hosted. The Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan guided us, gave us guidance, and gave all Black people who would follow his guidance to stay away. Retreat into your chamber to keep yourself safe. And I'm gonna end on this note. Do you remember the second wave that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Briggs and the government COVID-19 establishment was talking about? You remember that? That there would be a second wave of coronavirus in this country?
Yeah.
And the president, Trump, despite that possibility, opened up the country, and whites were protesting, opened up the country. Do you know why?
No.
Second wave, they said the data said the second wave did hit, but the second wave hit specifically in Black America. Black America suffered the second wave, or is suffering the second wave, and that was telegraphed, which is why Trump and White said, let us back out, because the second wave ain't going to hit us. The second wave is going to hit its target, Black America. So America did not avert the second wave. Black America, the second wave was targeted at Black America, and right now we are suffering that second wave.
Yeah, we are. I think this looks like it might be the last of our questions. Oh, wait, I see Dale has a follow-up real quick. Brother Dale Dixon wants to know that if he meets the Honorable Louis Minister Farrakhan, will you, Dr. Wesley, introduce him?
I can't make that promise, bro. I can't make that promise, beloved. I can't make that promise. Allah willing, you will be blessed to meet the Honorable Brother Minister Farrakhan. He loves you, and his love for Black people expands my heart with love for Black people, because he loves Black people unconditionally. He doesn't just love select Black people. He loves all people.
Well, you gotta wait. Yeah, you gotta wait.
I confess, I didn't come to Farrakhan like that, where my heart's so open. I love all Black people. I didn't come to him like that. But God made his heart like that, and he is opening my heart and our heart like that, inshallah.
How you gonna say goodbye to your friend?
So I think we are at the end of our show. If it's okay, Dr. Wesley, my niece, she's been waiting patiently. She's 2 years old. She wants to say bye to everybody.
We have to see that queen.
Okay, come on. All right, you can say bye. They said yeah. No, all right, say bye.
Bye.
Say bye, powerful creators. Say tune in tomorrow.
You gotta look right there. Say, tune in tomorrow. Okay. You did it. Lucas. She says bye. She actually has been waiting for 2 hours to say bye to everybody. And so that's for those who don't know, I'm an identical twin. So that's my twin sister's daughter. Fun fact actually is when I one day have kids, genetically, because me and her are identical, our children will be half siblings genetically than actual cousins. So I appreciate everyone for just letting her come on and say they're leaving tomorrow. So
safely. So people have been asking about the book.
Yes,
please subscribe to my webpage, drwesley.online. That's drwesley.online. Please visit the site and subscribe to the site. And there you can order the book. You can download our material, PDF material. You can download the report on the website, drwesley.online.
Yes. And remember, this was only part 1. So tomorrow we're going to be back with part 2, same time. So we'll go into further in depth of what has happened with Michael Jackson and the vindication of his murder by Dr. Wesley. And so if y'all thought the first part was good, it gets deeper.
This is just the opening.
This is just the opening. It gets much deeper than this. So we've got 2 more days of this. And also remember, especially for those of you who are our Patreons, if you want to join us live on the show to ask your question directly to Dr. Wesley, you can. And if you're not a Patreon, this is a great time to become a Patreon. So Brother Warren, if you could put up our page so people can know where to go. You can see at the bottom, it says just join now. It's patreon.com/dothemaftv. You know, without your guys' donations as well as your viewership, Dr. Wesley and I, as well as our whole entire team, would not be able to produce the show to the level that we are, especially now that things have been shelter-in-place orders. Like, y'all's donations are what's making this happen right now. Yes.
Thank you, Sister Janita, as usual. Wonderful job.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me be on here. And Dr. Wesley, it's always a pleasure. I always enjoy learning from you. I've learned so much within these last couple of years. And I'm really excited to see what else we unpack together.
As am I.
All right, powerful creators. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode. Remember, this was just part 1 of our 3 series. So we will be back tomorrow as well as Saturday. And again, if you have more questions, save them. If you haven't already, please download the report. I think if you download the report and read it while we're going through this, it's gonna really just strengthen the type of questions that you're gonna be able to ask. Also, you have the opportunity to check out those footnotes. And you will be surprised that all this has always been documented. Dr. Wesley is actually the first person that has synthesized all this research the way that he has. And so it tells a different story that the public hasn't been sharing. And I think we all deserve to know what that story is. So with that being said, Dr. Wesley, if you have any closing remarks, please.
I don't. You have the last great word. Assalamu alaikum, family.
All right, people. See you tomorrow.
America was not built on a firm foundation. The nation called America was doomed from its inception. How do you build a nation? Killing the native people. How do you build a nation? Bringing a whole people out of Africa to America to be made slaves. This is your foundation. The world is looking at a country going to hell. You are opting to be a part of that is unraveling right in front of your eyes. You see the country cascading downward. This is America. Why do you want to get into something that is coming to an end? So we are living in the time of the unraveling of this great nation.